Okay, Gavin, first of all, it's not a plague mask. It's a GIMP mask. Second of all, take it off and go back to work. Ass.
The following podcast contains...
This man is responsible for so much filth.
Explicit language.
Hello and welcome to the podcast that asks a simple question. When you did a whole show about this stupid virus back in January, what the hell were you thinking? I'm your host, Dave Bledsoe, and this is a Friday, March 6, 2020, Love in the Time of Coronavirus edition of the show, where we talk about whether or not we should all be fucking like there's no tomorrow. Stay tuned. What the Hell We Thinking podcast is brought to you by Fast Eddie's Face Mask Emporium. You want mask? We got mask. Any kind of mask you can think of, Fast Eddie's got it. In stock, hockey mask, catcher's mask, those little masks you wears on your eyes like that Lone Rangers. Yeah, we got those. Check out the entire last year's Halloween mask we picked up at a big discount in November. All kinds of characters, all kinds of monsters. Ooh, scary. We got those masks that people wear at them erotic parties like that one movie with Nicole Kidman. She was fucking hot in that movie. Them masks, what do you call them? The Guy Fawkes masks, we got those. We got all kinds of masks. They make them like in the spy movies. They look like somebody else, you know, with the latex and shit. We pull them out of a dumpster behind Silver Cup Studio in Queens. So if you're looking for a mask to save you from the disease, come on down to Fast Eddie's Mask Emporium and get all of your mask needs met. Unless you need the medical mask, because we ain't got none of those.
Containment breach! We've had a major containment breach!
Oh my God.
The security system appears to be malfunctioning. Seal the base, Campion. Is the main gate still open? Shut it!
Yes, sir.
We're dying like flies down here. Use the manual gate override, Campion. Do it now! Do it now!
Sally, baby LeVon.
Campion! This is a code red! We've lost one of the bunks! Repeat, we've lost one of the bunks! You have to close the gate!
I read Stephen King's The Stand way too young. I mean, I couldn't have been more than like 11 or 12, and I wasn't prepared emotionally or intellectually for that kind of book. After all, just a year before, after reading Salem's Lot, I begged for a crucifix to wear because, you know...
Vampires, my friend. Vampires.
And I knew that vampires weren't real, but, you know, just in case. So my dumbass reads The Stand a short time later. And I knew that the flu was real. And despite my insistence, my parents did not provide me with a biohazard suit for Christmas that year. Luckily for me, I grew out of my childish fears of a supervirus epidemic and guys named Randy. I mean, guys named Randy aren't the devil incarnate. At worst, Randys are a deadbeat in-law that shows up at your house on the holidays, drinks all the good liquor, and then leaves after clogging the shitter and not telling you about it.
Fuck, Randy!
Still, those childhood memories are there, buried in my subconscious, and over the past few weeks, a few have surfaced as coronavirus continues its march across the globe. You might remember that at the end of January, we did an entire episode telling you A, don't panic,
in large, friendly letters on its cover,
and B, don't drink fucking bleach thinking it will keep you from getting the virus. We stand behind that editorial stance and still consider it sound advice. But clearly, things are somewhat different now than they were then. So we're back with another episode telling you that
You're gonna die.
I mean, eventually, everyone will die eventually, but it's very unlikely that you're going to die of coronavirus. There's no need for anyone to be planning on like moving to Boulder or Las Vegas, and any dreams you may be having of an old black woman or a guy named Randy are due to either eating spicy foods before bed, or you need to speak with your doctor about the dosage on your anxiety meds. Let's begin with an update, because we here at this pod know that we are your trusted source for news you can use, whether it be a long-winded diatribe on sci-fi shows from the 80s or critical information about your health during a pandemic.
Why would anyone do that?
I don't know, maybe they're as drunk as I am. As of this recording on Friday, March 6th, there are 14 dead across the United States and 225 confirmed cases. The World Health Organization has updated the mortality rate for the virus to 3.4%, though this is somewhat disputed because the overwhelming majority of those deaths are in elderly and immunocompromised, which is bad, and people are not sure whether that's an accurate number. The virus is confirmed in 12 states, including right here in my hometown of New York City.
New York City!
Get a rope.
And people are starting to get nervous about it. As I'm recovering from a minor head cold, I find myself getting all kinds of space on the subway whenever I cough. So, silver linings. Silver linings. Like I said in January, the fundamentals of the case are this. We live in a country with good nutrition, high standards of sanitation, and ready access for most of us, some of us, a few of us to health care. The mortality rate is higher than the flu, but lower than some other recent outbreaks. And all things considered, we in the United States should be well positioned to weather this pandemic.
I think the 3.4% is really a false number. Now, this is just my hunch, but based on a lot of conversations with a lot of people that do this, because a lot of people will have this, and it's very mild. They'll get better very rapidly. They don't even see a doctor. They don't even call a doctor. You never hear about those people, so you can't put them down in the category of the overall population in terms of this corona flu and or virus. So you just can't do that. So if we have thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that get better just by sitting around and even going to work. Some of them go to work, but they get better. And then when you do have a death, like you've had in the state of Washington, like you had one in California, I believe you had one in New York, all of a sudden it seems like 3 or 4%, which is a very high number, as opposed to a fraction of 1%.
We are going to die. That's right, friends. President Hunch has got this shit under control. Why? He even appointed Vice President Pray the Virus away as the head of the entire government response to the virus. This presumably is because Pence's tight connection with the Lord will be needed to wheedle us out of this mess these dipshits will eventually create. I mean, Ben Carson, who's a fucking moron, is at least a medically trained moron and has some small idea what to do. Mike Pence literally let an HIV outbreak go unchecked in Indiana while he prayed on whether or not to let IV drug users have access to privately funded clean needles.
And what did God say?
Nothing, because there is no God, and the very fact that Mike Pence is fucking vice president is proof there isn't. We've Dr. Don telling people not to worry, show up at work and buy stocks while the CDC is turning out screening tests that don't fucking work. There were perfectly good tests out there. They were perfectly good because they worked. But no, Donnie wanted to buy American, apparently. The thing that apparently only plays to products the Trump family does not make a profit from. If the working coronavirus test in, say, South Korea had a licensing agreement to slap the Trump name on them for a 500% markup, you bet your ass we'd be using those tests right fucking now. It's not just the president. The entire administration is goat fucking the response to this virus. The State Department basically brought the virus into America by bringing back infected people from Japan and exposing them to unprepared and unprotected officials who then went out and spread the virus all over their communities. The biggest pools of infection were literally introduced by the United States government and that shit-headed morons running it. And when your granny dies, be sure to thank Donald Trump because he might as well have shot her in the head on Fifth Avenue.
Gammy doesn't feel so good. I think Gammy might be dying.
But hey, gotta protect the stock market, right? Oh, wait, yeah, that shit didn't work either. So yeah, things are bad. They're getting worse. Who knows? Maybe in 6 months we will all be divvying up between Boulder and Vegas, but stay away from Trash Can Man because that fucker is definitely not right. But I'm not here to talk about the coronavirus. I mean, I am, but not directly. You know how this show goes. I'm here to discuss something far more important. How the coronavirus impacts people fucking.
Yes, that's what concerns me.
And I'm not alone, pod friends, because I recently learned that coronavirus porn is a thing.
Of course it is!
From a March 4th article in Vice, quote, in a video titled Body Cam Footage, CDC Agent Investigated the Deserted Wuhan, unquote, you are watching from the first person of view of Jerry, a healthcare worker in a hazmat suit, stumbling around in the dark remnants of a medical facility. He breathes hard, his heart pounds, and a voice coming from his walkie-talkie tries and fails to get him to respond. There's a sudden, brief scuffle, and a woman in a hospital gown jumps him, pulls his erect penis from a hole in his clean suit, and wordlessly fucks him, unquote.
I weep for humanity.
Now, before you think these things are just crass attempts to cash in on a tragic and ongoing crisis, check your judgmental ass at the door. Sure, some of the porn, like, say, MILF in coronavirus quarantine gets hard fucked for medicine, or just trashy exploitation, and clearly some of them are, like coronavirus patient fucks in a quarantine room, and they don't contribute anything to a greater understanding of the virus and the plight of the afflicted.
Kind of like you are.
But some of the videos are using the opportunity to teach. Again, from the Vice article, quote, in COVID-19 coronavirus, horny slut has to use protection during outbreak. Performer Little Squirties skips to the front door, kicks off her shoes, and shouts, Daddy, I'm home and so horny. Her partner, Chase Pounder, emerges from the hallway wearing a face mask, his hand stuck out to stop her. Wait, don't move a foot closer. Haven't you heard of COVID-19? He proceeds to give her a 30-second PSA on the coronavirus with concision and that the CDC would envy on the state of the coronavirus outbreak in China, the purpose of the mask, and why they should use protection during sex, unquote. And then, pod friends, they two proceed to fuck and fuck well, while both are wearing N95 respirators, which if you've never worn one, are actually somewhat difficult to breathe in if worn properly, and it says a lot about the stamina and lung power of the actors as they vigorously get it on. They should be applauded for that alone. And as to the value of COVID porn, well, the actors are at least realistic about what they hope to accomplish. Quote, I think people are searching for it as a silly novelty. I think it's a minority who actually whack off to this kind of content, Chase said. There are a lot of people with a mask kink, but I don't think it's directly related to COVID-19 trend. I think it's attracted to people because it can help lighten the mood on a serious subject, unquote. Now, I get it. You're probably wondering, sure, Dave, I can see how it is hot to strip off everything but your respirator and get freaky in an exam room. Who wouldn't enjoy that? But what about here in the real world?
No one said anything about that.
Can I catch this virus from just regular old sex with someone who has it? Fortunately for you, my inquisitive friend, Mother Jones asked an epidemiologist this question and received a useful answer. Quote, there's no indication that coronavirus is sexually transmitted. I would think this is unlikely in the future since flu is not sexually transmitted. But if we are in close contact with someone who has the symptoms of flu or coronavirus, coughing, sneezing, runny nose, fever, headache, as we might be during sex, the likelihood of transmission for non-sexual reasons would be high. Also, infection with any virus, including something like an STD, can cause initial symptoms to be similar to the flu, unquote. I mean, I don't know if a lot of you have a kink for something like
Sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head fever.
so you can fuck kind of fetish. And I don't judge people if you do, so long as everyone is consenting. But it seems to me that most people, when they feel as shitty as COVID is supposed to make you feel with even a mild case, this kind of thing isn't really going to come up that much. But let's say that you've either been exposed to or have just traveled someplace that you could catch the COVID, or maybe you got the COVID and it's just a light case. A lot of people are positive but never even show any symptoms, and you wind up in self-quarantine for 2 whole weeks. How are you supposed to fill all of those empty hours?
Rub one out, rinse and repeat.
I mean, clearly you're going to need to take matters in your own hands. And this comes from the UK's Daily Mirror's Vanessa Feltz, which is apparently not a porn name, offered tips for the isolated. Quote, She suggested buying sex toys and engaging in sexual pleasure as part of her self-isolation tips amid the spread of the coronavirus. The TV star 58 gave her top tips for dealing with the deadly virus as people began to go into self-isolation. One of the quirkier tips was to buy sex toys, unquote. Feltz, which again is not a porn name, was suggesting it for couples, but I see no reason you shouldn't apply it to solo time as well. After all, watching Netflix for 5 or 6 hours straight, you're going to get a little bored. So why not whip out some toys, right? Crank up the vibe or lube up the fleshlight. It's safe, easy, and proven not to spread the virus. Now, some of you might be asking, Dave, you got anything, I don't know, a little bigger, a little kinkier?
No one did.
Is it safe for me to order a sex doll? Can I catch the virus from the packaging and or the manufacturing process? I am happy to report that it's perfectly safe for you to order a fuck doll from China, even at the fastest shipping rates of, say, 6 to 8 day expedited delivery via Air Express. Will put your fuck doll way past the viability window of the virus. If you order on the first day of quarantine, you should be sexing up your plastic doll long before the quarantine is over.
How do you know this?
I did research, I do a lot of research. It doesn't mean I've ordered Chinese sex dolls and I just have them lying around the house. However, you do not want to do what Brent Hazelton from Albion Park, south of Wollongong, Australia, did and bring a child sex doll back from China. That's right. He brought a child sex doll, which is apparently a thing that you can do, back from China because, again, there is no God and humanity is doomed. I learned about this, and hold on, I will get all this back to the COVID thing before it's over, from WA Today out of Perth, Australia. According to a March 4th article, Brent was arrested coming back from China February 22nd. During the height of the coronavirus lockdowns in China, Brent went to China and bought a child sex doll. And he was caught coming through customs with a doll marked clothing display models. Customs officials were suspicious as store mannequins rarely, if ever, are anatomically correct. From the article, quote, a later forensic examination of the man's phone revealed a folder allegedly containing child abuse material, the statement said. A search warrant was executed at Mr. Hazelton's home on Wednesday, and he was taken to Lake Illawarra Police Station. He's charged with 2 counts of intentionally importing a child sex doll into Australia and 1 count of possessing child abuse material. Possessing a childlike sex doll is punishable by 15 years imprisonment following amendments to the criminal code in September of last year.
What? What am I supposed to do with that information?
Well, I would start by not ordering child sex dolls from China or really anywhere. Now, aside from the sick fuck going to China to buy a child sex doll in the middle of a pandemic, what does this have to do with the virus? Well, this guy's girlfriend...
Is she real?
Is she real, like not plastic and not child size? Presumably because she had just returned from South Korea and, again from the article, quote, Mr. Hazelton's girlfriend, Bethany Alwert, who is believed to have interacted with the arresting officers and Border Force officials, has been in self-imposed quarantine after returning from a trip to South Korea. Ms. Alwert has not been charged with any offenses on Wednesday. She was coming to the end of the 14-day isolation period and was displaying no symptoms. A Border Force source has told the Herald that a Border Force has put 8 officers involved in the search warrant into quarantine as they await Mrs. Alwert's coronavirus test results due in the next few days, unquote. The article did not mention her reaction to Brent's predilection for plastic pedophilia. Also, I learned that this kind of thing happens down under enough for them to pass a law, and that 2 college students from Singapore were arrested earlier this year bringing a child sex doll back from China.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Speaking of immorality, I should report that according to some experts, it is your sinful fornicating ways that caused the COVID in the first place. Rick Wiles, the evangelical pastor and credentialed White House reporter, told his cult in January, quote, not to get into crazy whacked out theories about what he warned could be a global pandemic that kills hundreds of millions of people. He since suggested that the virus started in China because the godless communist government that persecuted Christians and forced abortions, and said the death angels could have his eyes on the U.S. God is about to purge a lot of sin off this planet. There are vile, disgusting people in this country now, transgendering little children, perverting them. Look at the rapes. Look at the sexual immorality, the filth in our TVs and our movies. Folks, the death angel may be moving right now across the planet. This is the time to get right with God, unquote.
He seems fine.
So, maybe you should spend your time in quarantine, fasting, and in meditation like Vice President Pence does. A man that almost certainly does not have a Chinese boy sex doll or a real breathing Chinese boy in the room where he prays alone that mother is never allowed inside. I guess if I had any real advice on love in the time of coronavirus, it would be, don't knock 6 sex until you tried it. I once spent a woozy, sweaty, feverish weekend with a girlfriend blasted on NyQuil and trying to have sex just to see what it was like.
Well, how was it?
Let me put it this way. You ever, how shitty you feel after spending a couple of days in bed, sweating from a fever, surrounded by used Kleenexes? Your head hurts, you can barely breathe, your entire body hurts, and even getting up to go to the bathroom leaves you fucking exhausted for like half an hour afterwards? How do you think the sex was? There's nothing sexy about snot. Anyone that says sex is good, even when it's bad, has obviously never tried fucking with the flu. My God, both of you have a fever. You're shivering and sweating through the blankets. No one can get turned on with all that. It's almost as sick and disgusting as a Chinese child sex doll. Almost.
Support for this podcast comes from BMO. Should these uncertain times alter your approach to managing Treasury cash? What 4 strategies can help optimize returns? Unpredictable times call for expert insights. Read the article, Corporate Treasury, Optimizing Liquidity in an Uncertain Environment by James Santoro, Managing Director, Liquidity Specialist. Get his expert take at bmocm.com/COVID. That's bmocm.com/COVID. Corporate Treasury. We work here.
That is it for our show this week. Did I just take a pandemic and make it about porn, masturbation, and fucking? Yes. Yes, I did. Am I proud of doing it? A little, yeah. You try writing a show every week and see if you can stay out of the primary election while you do it and see what you come up with. Speaking of being slightly proud, go ahead and rate and review the show wherever you find your pods. It helps others find the show and makes me slightly proud of you. Follow the show on Twitter, @the_hell_podcast, or the show name on Facebook. If you must, honestly, stay off Facebook. That shit is more toxic than the virus. And check out whatthehellpodcast.com for some sample-sized shareable bits of the show. So for me, Dave, honestly, I have a fucking head cold Bledsoe, producer, level 4 biohazard suit Gavin, and all the fictional rhesus monkeys in our lab. We want to say seriously, people, Chinese child sex dolls. What the fuck? We'll see you all next week.
The garden's a secret compartment. And that's the way I like it. And that's the way I like it. Your body's a dream that turns violent. And that's the way I like it. And that's the way I like it. The winter is warm in the city. And that's the way I like it.
I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow.